Oh my God, boys. We are officially dealing with a fucking sand scram.
Welcome back to the Squatchers Lounge podcast. Join Reverend Jeff tonight as he takes us into eastern Texas and Montgomery County to check out a Bigfoot hotspot just outside of Houston. Along with that, we get the news of the week, a brand new quasi-theory from Dean Cooper, and then wrapping it all up with another Bigfoot campfire stories. It's sure to be an amazing night, right here on the Squatchers Lounge podcast.
Mr. Announcer Man must have forgot that part, but that's okay. He's getting better and better each week. Welcome aboard, everybody. This is the Squatchers Lounge podcast. I am Reverend Jeff, investigator of the paranormal. That's right, not just Bigfoot, but you can throw it all at me, and I've got an answer for most of it anyhow. Hey, we're here because we're going to talk about Bigfoot tonight in Texas. That's right, specifically Montgomery County. That's Houston area. Yeah. It's Sam Houston Forest area. But there's a bunch of stories coming out of there. And apparently, this is the hot spot for Texas, not the big thicket. No. So we're going to talk about that tonight. I'm here. You're there. Makes the whole thing awesome. So now we're going to get into a little bit of the news of the week. That's right. No white box this week. Yay, Google. They're actually getting their crap together. All right. I saw this one and I couldn't miss it. Gangs of aggressive killer whales are shaking down Alaska fishing boats for their fish. That's right. Apparently, the orcas will sit and wait all day for fishermen to accumulate their catch of halibut and then definitely rob them blind. They will relentlessly stalk individual fishing boats, sometimes forcing them back into port. Most chilling of all is the news after decades of relatively peaceful coexistence with the cod and halibut fishers off of the coast of Alaska. The region's orcas appear to be turning on them in greater numbers. We've been chased out of the Bering Seas, said Paul Clampett, Washington State-based co-owner of the FV Augustine. Like many of the boats, the Augustine has tried electronic noisemakers to ward off the animals, but the orcas simply got used to them. It became a dinner bell. That's right. I really hope this story is true. If it isn't, don't tell me that it's not, because I really, really want this one to be true. ThePromise.com is in the news. I want to see video of this. I mean, there's some pictures of it, but I literally want to see video of orcas strong-arming fishermen for their catch just to get them to leave them alone, because I think that would prove that humans are not the smartest creatures. Good Lord, my poor birds are just horny tonight. Sorry, people. They'll quiet down as soon as the sun chills a little bit. Okay. Gold Coast's Fort Lauderdale Daily. There's a population of wild monkeys living in Dania Beach. That's right. Missy Williams steps around the corner of the chain link fence at the end of the Fort Lauderdale Airport park and ride lot and into what can only be described as truly frightening jungle, and much frightening about Florida except for the alligators and the liberals. The way ahead looks impassable. Mangrove limbs and rope vines crochet from ground to sky. Underfoot roots pop up everywhere. A natural bed of nails. Williams, an anthropologist and mother of a seemingly fearless outdoors woman, pulls apart the vines like the opening curtains and steps inside. What wonderful writing. Yeah, she's down and she studies these monkeys that kind of got left behind. As the old Reverend here talks about a lot of times, in the old days there were everybody had a zoo. It's not a zoo. Yeah, it's not a zoo, but you're keeping zoo animals. Chimpanzee parks, alligator parks. For a long time, this stuff went on. Hurricanes would come through. Tourists would stop coming. They just turned these animals loose. And these monkeys were one of those sad cases, only they were able to take root and they've been there now for generation after generation. Story goes on to talk about them studying them and yada, yada, yada. It's a bunch of pictures of themselves, but you can check it out at the FortLauderdaleDaily.com because it talks about one of the Florida primates that still thrives in the swamps. Okay, moving right along. Apparently, this is why mosquitoes bite some people and don't touch others. Mosquitoes are a nasty, irritating insect whose presence is easily ruined on otherwise perfect occasion. The way they buzz and swarm all around, waiting to land on some warm body to bite, is enough to drive you crazy. The worst part about the pesky suckers is the diseases that they carry. Well, a current ongoing public health crisis concerning the Zika virus. Sorry, dyslexia to its finest when I replace the first letters of each word, which is spread by mosquitoes, is causing all sorts of health issues. It's only the latest international health threat that is related directly to the mosquitoes. That's right. We had the bird flu, and there's always something going on with these daggone things, and you wonder why they bite some people and not others. Well, exercise and lactic acid productions. A sweatier and smellier person is more attractive to them. Bacteria on our skin. You're dirty, they're going to be more attracted to you. Blood type apparently has something to do with it. The type of blood you have coursing through your veins factors greatly into the risk of whether you're not end up suffering from the little bastards. And carbon dioxide. The more carbon dioxide you exhaust around yourself, the more you will attract the mosquitoes to you. There you go, people. That's why mosquitoes bite some people. Sad news. TriStateUpdate.com. Black bear kills 16-year-old boy during a race. Anchorage, Alaska. Authorities say a black bear killed a 16-year-old runner while he was competing in Alaska race on Sunday. I believe the story goes on to talk about the parents receiving a text from the kid that he was being chased by a bear and he was still running. And we've talked about it here on the podcast time and time again. With black bears, you cannot run from them. If you run from a black bear, you make yourself prey. The only chance you have of getting rid of an aggressive black bear is to turn and face it. Become bigger than it, become angrier than it, become more stubborn than it, and if it doesn't go away, kick it square in the mouth as hard as you can as soon as it gets close to you. But don't run from it. That just makes you prey. The same thing goes for cougars, bobcats. Don't run from a bobcat. Stare a bobcat down, man, because that bobcat's going to come bite the crap out of you if you don't. Careful. Just don't make yourself prey at them. And this is a very, very sad thing. Well, apparently, there were 2 fatal accidents. There were 2 fatal maulings and two fatal maulings in 2 days by Alaska black bears. The second one came up. Patrick Cooper died on Sunday as a 16-year-old came down the Bird Ridge near Anchorage mountain race. A day later, Pogo mine contract employee in Alaska's interior was killed also by a black bear. Experts say that fatal maulings by black bears in Alaska are rare. Until the past few days, only 6 deaths had been linked to black bears in 130 years, according to the biologist compiling the report on the Alaska bear attack since 1880. The sequence of events leading to Cooper's death is unknown beyond a text message sent to a relative saying he was being chased by a bear as he descended after the finish of the 1 Mile Juniors division course. That's the whole point to it. You've got to stop and face these things, and that's what do we call that? That's courage, I guess. But there's a difference between being courageous and being brave. In that case, you have to be brave. Being courageous means doing the right thing even in the face of fear. Being brave is doing the right thing in the face of fear only during the stupidest activity you can imagine, which would be facing down a black bear. But you'd have to force yourself to be. Images show Bigfoot may be roaming north of San Antonio, according to Texas park officials. Round Rock Parks and Recreation Department released photos of Bigfoot tracks. Or did they? Apparently, Round Rock Parks officials think this is like finding Bigfoot or, Jack Lynx Sasquatch in a bag. They're just trying to drum up attention to their parks and recreations, and they're using old footage. The video is from a Russian Bigfoot video posted in 2012 with a couple of weird edits to it. The footprints are also old footprints that have been doctored and now re-released. So don't get your panties in a bunch, San Antonio. Round Rock doesn't have Bigfoot yet. We'll look into it further. Okay. Expedition Mongo. That's right. Search for the South American Bigfoot. No, I'm not going anywhere, and no, you can't have my email. You'll just sell it to somebody else. The new series on Animal Planet, Expedition Mongo, is surprising and full of adventure. Meet Mongo, Bear Grylls' longtime cameraman. Oh, is he the one that exposed Bear Grylls for being a phony? That'd be funny. Who takes center stage for something completely different. He traveled to more than 90 countries to capture the world's wild and wonderful and sometimes hostile environments. Well, what else could be out there to tempt him? How about expeditions to discover the truth about myths and legends? Nowhere is too far or too difficult. And on Sunday nights in June, he's heading to Argentina. I talked to Dean Cooper, our quasi-theorist. He says it wasn't half bad. I haven't watched it yet. I've got it on my DVR to check out. I just haven't gotten around to it. It's been vinyl glory in my house for a few weeks, and I'm loving it. Moving right along. Pennsylvania man says ape-like humanoids are killing wildlife and troops. Bradford, PA, a northern Pennsylvania resident, is asking for help dealing with a series of unusual creatures. The man who left a rather cryptic message on the Mutual UFO Network, which I don't know why he went there, says he has been seeing these beings for the past 3 days. Unless they're portal squatches that come through the portals and symbiosis with trees. Maybe he is in the right network. I don't know. I see them 24/7. They're living in the higher parts of pine trees. Aha! But they also use other trees, he says. Well, that doesn't sound right. The Pennsylvanian describes the creature as ape-like and able to blend in with the trees with ease of a chameleon. Oh, now we've got predator squatch. Nice. They become one with the trees. Their hands and trees become rooted in the trees when they rest. Okay. Now, we've heard of the crazy shit of Magic Johnson. This is taking Magic Johnson, mixing it with a little bit of Predator, and now Entism. Hey, Johnson, you might want to get a hold of this guy. He's probably got your next book in the back of his head. Probably even write it for you, too. All right, finally tonight, and I saw this come off of the desk of the Meldrum. Yeah, now we've talked about it a little bit on the show, and I haven't really done anything with it because, I mean, it is what it is. Apparently, there are these possible ground nest attributed to Sasquatch. Now, we've talked about it a little bit. The Olympic Project was brought into it. Shane Corson and, of course, Derek Randalls. And now apparently Dr. Meldrum are involved with it. You know, they took a sample of one. They found some hairs and some. Now that there's this new type of DNA study out there, the eDNA, which is what you heard about when they dusted the cave and came up with the Denisovian DNA, even though there were no bones or even any evidence that the Denisovians had ever been in that cave, just by the debris litter or testing the dirt or whatever the heck they're testing. Apparently they can do this. It's like touch DNA, next step, I guess. Well, now they want to raise, to start $7,500, but, Dr. Meldrum's asking for all 5,000 of his followers to pitch in $20 so that they can just throw $100,000 at just scraping stuff and testing it to see what comes up. It's like throwing spaghetti against the wall to see if it sticks. I'm intrigued by the nest. Something laid there. I don't know what laid there, but something laid there. But every time I see the pictures of these things, these nests, and if we scroll down here on the end, everybody's always curled up in it. Now, I mean, right? I'm 7-8 foot tall. I think I would make a bunch of impression. Just get up and out of that thing. You'd think that there would be large impressions everywhere from where I got up to go pee. Because apparently there's no feces or urine spots in these things. They have several of them that they have found in a few locations, I guess. I'm privy to some information I can't really share, but this is the obviously the stuff that's out in the public view. And okay, so Meldrum's now attached to it, so there's money involved. See how that works? $1,000 per sample is what it's going to take to test all this stuff. So buy a whole bunch of the Bigfoot Sasquatch field guides, and for $100 each, when they're $7.99 on the internet, donations of $300 gets you a book that you can buy for $29.99. Anyhow, if you're interested in it, go ahead, donate to it. If I'm just going to sit back and watch on this one. I honestly think that Dr. Meldrum should have other avenues to go to than the blue collar people of the Bigfoot community to fund his DNA studies, but apparently not. How the news goes on this wonderful Wednesday night. Look at that. It's all done in can. All right, you know what? It is time to hear a little bit of thoughts from our quasi-theorist, Mr. Dean Cooper himself. It's going to be one of those nights, Dean, because I didn't have your picture loaded. Yeah, there it is, the Dean Coopster and his quasi-theory of the week. And now, quasi-theories from a quasi-scientist with your host, Dean Cooper.
There's something fishy about the summer solstice. Yesterday, June 20th, was the first day of summer. Officially, it was at 11:24 p.m. Central Standard Time, where I live. If you live much east of here, it was this morning on June 21st. Traditionally, in the Christian world, it marks the birthday of John the Baptist, although it is usually celebrated a few days later, depending on when the solstice actually occurs. It's 6 months later than the birth of his cousin Jesus, whose birthday is celebrated a few days after the winter solstice. When Jesus went to John to be baptized, John said, "He must increase, but I must decrease." John 3:30, which is to say that after Jesus is born, days get longer. After John is born, days get shorter. Jesus, after all, has all the attributes of many pagan sun gods. Christianity is notorious for having adapted much of pagan mythology, holidays, customs, really nearly all of paganism into Christianity. 12 Greek gods, 12 apostles, all the same holidays. Churches built on top of the foundations of pagan temples, the which were torn down by Christian monks. The list is near endless. So from whence was John the Baptist derived? The answer is in the etymology of his name. John comes from the Latin Johannes, which comes from the Greek Ioannis, which in Hebrew is Yohanan, all of which comes from Oannes. Oannes was the Mesopotamian god of water and wisdom, whose worship included baptism. Oannes was depicted as half man and half fish, and was also known as Dagon. The odd hat called a mitre, worn by Christian cardinals, is a stylized fish head, and was worn by the priests of Dagon. So Jesus, the sun god, is baptized by Oannes, the water god. The great mythologist Joseph Campbell wrote, "Several scholars have suggested, therefore, that there was never either John or Jesus, but only a water god and a sun god." So let's honor both today, both sun and water. Get out your sprinklers, your super soakers, your slip and slides. Fill up some water balloons and baptize your neighbors. You may read the text of this on my blog at bydean.com. That's BHAIDIN.com.
Baptize your neighbors. That's right. You heard it right here on the Squatchers Lounge podcast with Dean Cooper's quasi theory. Although, I don't know what you're baptizing them with, so be careful. All right. It's time that we get out and do some shout outs to all you lucky folks that are hanging out in the live chat room tonight. If you don't know how to find the chat room, it's because you're not here live. If you're here live on Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Pacific time, because that's where I live, specifically at Pacific time, that's when we go live. And there's a chat box that comes up right here with the YouTube channel, and you can chat live with all the people that are here. And there's a crap ton of them tonight. Look at that. Hey, everybody out there. There, of course, is the birthday boy, Mr. Kurt Harris. Happy birthday to you, sir. Jason Gerd. That's right. His channel is his name. I am what I am. Are you Popeye the Sailor Man? Candy Apple. She's in the house. Starshine. She's always hanging out. Mr. Dean Cooper, the quasi-theorist, of course. Rod Dupree. He's always in the place to be. Asderland Drake, you sound like a Harry Potter character. Let's see here. Who else is in the house? And Oreo Cream Rocks. Yes, it does. I wish I could get it without the cookies. Let's see here. I know there's more people than that in here. Of course, there's a brown dwarf hanging out. And there's Lance Windsor. He's hanging out with us today. I gotta go slow because I don't want to miss anybody, because I think I missed people last week. There's a Natalie Smith. How you doing, Natalie? Pleasure with us this week. Your Hobo Man 5. How you doing, pal? You're hanging out tonight with us as well. There's a Keith Harden in the house. How you doing? I heard that the Gong Show is coming back. Are you kidding me, people? We might have to watch, we might have to have watching parties or something online, because I love the Gong Show. I am not even kidding. If you haven't said hi to me yet, you better hurry up and do so. Sam Squanch Rivera, he's finally gotten up there in the house. There's Squatch Fox. That's right. And her son Christopher, they are big fans of the show, and I am big fans of theirs. So I'm glad that they're hanging out with us tonight. Jonathan Doty. I hope I'm saying that right. Tim McCune. Hey man, glad you're with us. Thanks for the heads up, for the thumbs up, man. I appreciate it. We're here for you, not for me, that's for sure. We're trying to keep everybody's fair and square in the Bigfoot world and keep a little bit of reality grounded to the floor. That's right. There's a William Morris. He's hanging out there. Glad you're with us. I just see getting to the top here. So if you haven't said hi, you better be at the bottom, because pretty much run out of time. Call your Wilmas. He's finally in the house. He gets all quiet during showtime. I don't know what he's doing. He's doing secret stuff and plotting the end of Canada, I think. Something like that. Boy, we're going to be talking about Texas here tonight. I got some Class A's for you that are actually in the relatively contemporary time stamp that we're not used to. So it's an active place, and I'm really hoping that we get a chance to look at it. There's Nicole LA. How you doing? Forrest Groves, he's hanging out with us as well. Hi, my name's Forrest Groves. We have Forrest Krabs that hangs out with us too. I'm not sure where he's at tonight, but we have a bunch of people named Forrest. That's quite interesting. I love it. Okay, he's planning the end of Canada. All right. Now we're going to be doing it, because it is time to talk about Montgomery County, Texas. Now, when I went out to Texas and I started looking at the encounters that were out there, I'm like, oh, man, the most encounters have to be, in the big thicket, right? I mean, everybody talks about Eastern Texas, way Eastern Texas. It's got to be out in the big thicket. That's where everything's got to be. But actually, in here, I'll give you the map so we can take a quick peek at it, and you can see that it's very strange that the red outline circle is literally the highest number of Bigfoot reports in Texas. Now, of course, the satellite, and we see that it's not white. Of course, it just means that it's not federal. It is the beginning of the forested lands. Texas is much more densely forested than anything else around it. So they're basically at the beginning of the tree fall why, but maybe it's the end where the Bigfoot just refused to give up. Well, no, we ain't leaving. This is our land. That is to Houston. You guys in Houston, Texas, boy, you've got something hot, right? Let's actually talk about it here for a little bit. We'll talk about the Class A's at least. Montgomery, Texas. There we go. Brothers have an encounter while building a house in the summer of 1983. Bought a lot in the subdivision of Westwood in 1983. Myself had been working to put up the walls on my house and had worked into the late evening. He had used the gas camp lights to see by night. My brother had long been a logger in Washington State. He had come home with tales of Bigfoot, but of course, no one in the family believed him but me. I had had my own encounter years ago when I was just in my teens on a hunting trip. So when the smell hit us, brought on by the slight wind of the heads, came up at the same time, and my brother looked over at me and smiled. My heart was thumping so hard, I had to catch my breath. The smell was so very bad, that of a bad potato. I walked out to the road where my car was, the hood. As I stated, we were in the middle of nowhere in a very empty part of a subdivision with swamp behind my property. We had tents set up near the road, so we turned the lanterns off and just listened to the night sounds and heard the sounds of something very large moving around us. The night went by quickly, though, but the next is scary. We had just put out our tools and turned the lanterns off. We sat out by the road in lounge chairs. It was very dark. My lot was on a circle. It had been very quiet. 50 yards to the side of us, all hell broke loose. There were at least 3 very large animals began to scream and cackle and make a babbling. I got up and used the headlight of my brother's motorbike to see them. But when I moved, they were gone and very still. We had many more encounters with them after that, but they would check us out in the daytime from time to time. The one we were sure was a male would watch us from the pine trees about 250 yards away, but we saw him good enough to see he was about 8 foot tall, very broad in the chest, and a hard, tall, sloping forehead. Like I said, I had many encounters with him ago that this was the best I could remember. Wow. That's, yeah. See, like, you know, when you're building something out in the middle of nowhere and your broham's with you up, yeah, you really do kind of pay attention to what's going on. All right, we're moving right along here. 2002, spring, April time, right near Cut and Shoot on Highway 105. Hiker has a daytime encounter in the Sam Houston National Forest. Me and my family had moved to the Montgomery County area in October of 2001. In December, I had noticed an old logging road leading into the Sam Houston National Forest from the subdivision, which was still under development at the time. Hiked since I was a teenager, so I decided to see where this road went and weather permitted. In April 2002, I had taken some vacation time from work, and one afternoon after mowing, I thought I would go for a walk. A routine I continued for several days, going further down the road and deeper into the woods each trek. Sense of deer, hog, squirrel, and even bear in the area. On the 6th day, I walked by an area that had springs on both sides of the trail, which alternated sides every so often. I noticed on this trip that there were no animal sounds or activity, and I felt like I was watched. and surveyed my surroundings, and to the east of my yards in the thick underbrush, something quite robust in size and dark in color seemed to be crouched between a couple of trees looking in my direction. Large hog or a bear, so I turned south toward home, and this creature moved along with me, keeping a distance of approximately 15 to 30 yards between us at all times. We continued this kind of cat and mouse routine for about 20 to 25 minutes. I stopped to relieve myself, then suddenly, I don't know what possessed me to turn into the woods towards the creature. It stopped and crouched very low to the ground and remained perfectly still. I had gotten in to about 10 yards and I got wind of a strange odor, and I can't describe. I heard a low guttural growl coming from the creature's area. It was very dark in color and almost lying in a prone position, much like a sniper lining up for his shot, and human-like legs, only very hairy. I could make out thick arms and shoulders, also covered with thick hair, probably no more than 1 to 2 inches in length. It was down almost as if it was trying to hide its face. I would estimate it to be no more than 6 foot tall. The hair on my neck stood up when I heard movement of something large moving in the woods across the trail behind me. I moved quickly back onto the trail, and it seemed I wasn't being followed, so I slowed my pace. By this time, I was about 100 to 125 yards from the point that I had urinated. I turned and I saw that this dark figure walk upright out of the east woods and stop at my puddle area. It squatted for a few, then stood up and looked directly at me for a few more seconds. Its head turned abruptly towards the west, and much larger, darker being came slightly into view. They both, as I backpedaled and watching them for another dozen or so yards, when I decided home was the best place for me, and turned and ran off. Yeah, I'm out with you. Turn to home sounds like the best place to be for you as well. All right. Number 3 for the night. Another Class A. The summer of 2003, July. Again, while riding horseback, man has a midday sighting. Cut and shoot. North Walker Road that crosses from FM 105. Let's see here. In the summer of 2003, I had an experience that will forever be burned into the front of my mind. I was with some family members and a friend, and we went horseback riding on a hunting lease that was not in use due to summertime. We were riding on the dirt roads, crossing throughout the lease, and when we came to the end of the road, we then started back the way we had just rode. About a quarter to a half mile back, I had stopped to look at a dead coral snake I hadn't noticed on the way to the dead end. I was facing towards the dead end. For some reason, I looked up towards the dead end, when from out of nowhere, a very large animal cleared the width of the road from left to right, which is about 15 feet from one edge of the bush to the other. It was completely covered in hair that was reddish brown in color. I turned to the other riders and asked if they had just seen that. Hadn't turned around and were in that direction. I told them I had just seen a Bigfoot, but they tried to explain it away as a cow or a deer. I have never seen a cow clear that much distance, even at a dead run. I know deer can, but this creature was upright, and I could clearly see the motion of its arms, like it had made a running jump. I got the feeling it was tracking us through the woods, or that when I had looked towards the dead-end road through us. I can't explain why I looked up in that particular moment. Creepy. And then the people that are with you won't even believe you, And you're just like, all right, so when the Sasquatch shows up and rips your arms off and beats you to death, don't blame me, but I got to go. You know, and I'd be whipping my nag, man. I'd be getting the heck up out of there. Y'all can stay here. That's fine. Don't believe me. I ain't worried. I know what I saw. All right. 2006, summertime, April, a print found in the Sam Houston National Forest along the Lone Star hiking trail. Let's see here. Nearest town, they say in Montgomery, Richards Loop, off the Lone Star hiking trail. That's a bit more specific. My dad and I were walking the Lone Star hiking trail loop in the Sam Houston National Forest. We were on the loop back towards the car. There had been forest fires in the region, and there were soft ash spots around. We had just taken a break, and then we were off again. We were stepping over a log when I noticed what looked like a footprint in the ash. We looked at it, and it was definitely a bare foot. You could see the outline of toes, and having done research before, I had known that it looked like 8 footprints, that there was an arch in the middle of the foot, which this print did not have. To me, to make sure that it wasn't just a harder spot, I touched it, and it was as soft as the rest, so there was no other explanation for why it was there. We looked around for other prints, but we didn't find any. But all the ground around it was harder and not ash, so it would have been hard to make an impression. I jumped on it, and still no impressions were made, and I weigh about 200 pounds. The print wasn't huge, but it was bigger than my foot, which is a 13.5 4E, which is a big shoe. I was convinced it was not human because no one would be walking around barefoot, and mainly because of that. That's right. No one walks around barefoot except for Barefoot Ronnie. Barefoot Ronnie's damn near 7 foot. He ain't got no arches in his feet either. So sometimes it's just Barefoot Ronnie. Sometimes it's a Sam Squatch. And Barefoot Ronnie isn't in Texas. So actually, he might be. All right. Class A, in the year 2014, observation of a tall figure in a meadow while driving outside New Caney at dawn. Highway 59 at the New Caney exit, nearest town, New Caney, Texas, and the Fire Tower Road on June 22nd at approximately 6:10. I witnessed what I could only describe as a large male Sasquatch. I was on my way to work in New Caney, Texas. It was very cloudy that morning with heavy dew rising. I was driving the speed limit, 35 miles per hour, looking for wildlife. I might add this area is thickly wooded, but also is dotted with many homes. The area is also close to the river. I noticed a very tall, shadowy figure approaching a group of cows with a calf. It was at least 8 to 9 feet tall and about 48 to 50 inches wide at the shoulders. I slowed down as much as possible. It saw my brake lights, and it turned to look at me. A distance, and when I'm a bow hunter, and I estimated it to be 45 to 50 yards away. It had a forehead and very defined brow ridge. I could not tell what color hair it was, but I noticed a long beard, and its arms hung down to almost its knees. I struggled to get my phone out to take a picture, but by the time I got it out, turned, and walked into the woods, I think it might have been going for the calf. There are many water sources in that area and abundant wildlife in those woods, so lots of things to eat. Wow. Lots of stories. Class A's, there's a lot of Class B's still left to tell in Montgomery County, but we'll leave those for tonight. Wow, look at that. So who knew just above Houston that there was a big crowd of Sam Squatch living in the woods? Apparently that is the case. Honestly, I really appreciate every one of you guys being out there tonight. We're going to wrap everything up with a Bigfoot campfire story tonight. I want to thank you guys for being there, and I swear there is a Bigfoot campfire story coming this weekend. So for me and my peoples that help me out with this show, we want to say thank you. Happy Father's Day. Happy 4th of July coming, and may the Squatch be with you. and enjoy this particular Bigfoot campfire story. We'll see you next time. German tourists eat candy bars. What the hell is that? I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure that was a Bigfoot. Let me tell you a story. Well, this story was told to me by a man named Gunter. Now, Gunter was a visitor to the States from over in Germany, and I happened to run into him on the side of the mountain in the Great Smoky Mountain National Park, just as his adventure was coming to a close. I've always heard of how beautiful the American Smoky Mountains were, and as luck would have it, I met a new friend. And after a year of chatting online, he offered to let me stay at his place in base camp while I set out into the Smoky National Park. Now, Chris told me the right time of the year to come was the end of summer, so I made my plans and took the time off work, then booked my travels to the Smokies. I hit the park with the idea to hike and camp, and as I saw fit, I'd explore as much of the area as I could get in the month that I had of vacation. The first few weeks were really incredible. I had managed to hike all the way to the highest peak called Klingman's Dome. I didn't pack much because every couple of days I ran into a general store or a supply place to get food and water, and I would take it as needed. But up here, it was pretty wild. Not much in the way of people, even though there are roads that lead everywhere. I rarely ran into anyone on the trails. I'd set up my primitive camp about 4 miles into the trail. I hadn't looked like anybody had used the area in quite some time, maybe even years. I was happy with it because it seems things were almost untouched, like the way it used to be. It was kind of getting cold in the elevation, so I started up a small fire and I set about making some food. I set a nice piece of pork on the fire spit to cook, and well, I must have dozed off because the next thing I realized, the fire was nearly out and the pork was, well, much overcooked. So I stirred the coals and added a piece of wood to the fire, and it practically roared right back to life with all the pine pieces that was in it. And then I noticed something in the shadows. It was just barely peeking from behind a tree. I had seen bears before. This was no bear. And as the firelight got bigger, well, it retreated further back into the trees, but still kind of peeked out from here and there. I couldn't catch a real glimpse of it. It was mostly a silhouette, but boy, there was no detail at all. I tossed a piece of my candy bar out into the tree line and sat and waited. Sure enough, I heard something snorting and eating at it just a few short minutes later. Well, I knocked the wood to the side of the fire to let the fire die down a bit, and I tossed another piece of candy out just a little bit closer to my camp. Within a minute or two, something came closer, grabbed that piece of candy as well, and started eating it. Got another one, just a bit closer, and then I moved the wood back onto the fire. And just as this creature had come out to get that candy, the fire picked up again, and that's when it was in full view. Not the mighty 9-foot Sasquatch I've heard about, but a 6-foot creature covered in hair, somewhere between ape and man. And as the firelight swept up, it covered its eyes, kind of let out a meaningful grunt, and ran off into the trees once again. Standing there, shaking from shock, I had no real idea what it had been messing with. But once I laid eyes on it, there was no doubt that Bigfoot are real. That creature was no doubt it's going to be in my mind forever. Well, the rest of the night, I heard it pacing kind of out of sight, making lonely kind of grunting sounds, but I kept the fire burning. I wasn't so sure I wanted it near camp once again. I finally drifted off to sleep sometime in the darkness, and when I awoke, the fire had died down. Some of my gear was tossed about the area. See, my visitor wanted a keepsake, as I never could find my old used boxers. Well, it was 2 days later when I ran into Gunter. He had shared my camp with me, and we sat and told many different strange stories. He said he had made his way back, and he didn't camp out alone all the way back until he had met me as well. I can't say that I blame him. Thanks for listening. I'm Reverend Jeff. May the Squatch be with you.